Welcome back to our next edition of our budget deliberations. And I'm going to have the clerk do roll call and a recap of where we are today.
Members of committee, I will call your name. Please indicate your presence. Councillor Santos.
Present.
Councillor Vicente.
Present.
Councillor Brar.
Present.
Councillor Paleshi. Councillor Keenan.
Present.
Chair Brown is present. Councillor Medeiros is not present at the moment. He did say he'd be participating remotely. Councillor Power. Councillor Fortini. Deputy Mayor Singh. And Councillor Tour is not present. So, Mr. Chair, you do have quorum. You can proceed. And do you want me to, would you like me to do a recap?
Sure, yes.
Sorry. So today's committee is a carry forward of the two sessions, four sessions over the last 2 days of 27th and 28th. All that remains on the agenda right now is before deliberating on final recommendations from the Budget Committee. 10.3 on the agenda is a report on recording of traffic cameras at intersections. This was a matter that was a report at the February 22nd Committee of Council meeting, was received on consent at last week's council meeting, March 1st. It was referred back to staff for consideration and a report back or additional information at Budget Committee today. So we have listed the original report as 10.3. 10.4 on today's agenda is responses to questions raised at budget deliberations, prepared by finance staff in collaboration with all the departments. And in that document, that PowerPoint presentation, there is responses in regards to the traffic cameras. So 10.3 and 10.4 are the only two remaining items on the agenda before committee goes through its deliberations on the recommendations, and those two items can be considered together.
Thank you. So this takes us to 10.3, recording of the traffic cameras at intersections. Do we have an updated costing on that? And is it Rob that'd like to speak to that? Oh, discontinuation of the. Oh, you want to add some delegations? So to the clerk procedurally, as we're continuing, where would there be an opportunity to amend the agenda?
Through you, Mr. Chair, committee could do that now if they so choose by a 2/3 vote. If they wish to, I think Councillor Paleshi may be proposing to add some additional delegations to today's Budget Committee. So subject to a 2/3 vote, those could be added now and considered immediately or after consideration of 10.3 and 10.4. It's up to committee.
Okay, Councillor Paleshi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I have two delegations that I'd like to add to before us. The delegations had tried to get on prior, and then were one I think was told tomorrow. And the way we are kind of in the, he told me that he was told tomorrow, but where we are in budget, I think it looks like we might be wrapped up today with ratification Thursday. So the clerk has both the names of the delegations. I'd ask him to read them out. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the first delegation, as I understand it, is from Prashanth Kumar Panda, and this is in regards to the Embleton Park/Community Center. I believe that's Ward 2. 6, my apologies. And the second added delegation is from Glenn Coyle from Canada House, Veterans Ambassador, in regards, I presume, to a request of council. So those are two separate delegations on two separate matters.
Okay, is there 2/3 consent to add the two delegations today? I see the 2/3. And I'm looking to Councillor Paleshi. Would you like to have the delegations in advance of 10.3, 10.4, or do you, or a new item at 10.5?
Delegations first.
Okay, so any objection to having the delegations before? No objection? Okay, so in that case, we have 5 minutes for Prashant Kumar Panda, followed by Glenn Coyle. Do we have Prashant in the building?
He's online.
Online, okay.
Hi, Prashant here. I am online today. Sorry, I could not make it to the city hall today. Can you hear me?
We can, Prashanth, you can proceed. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you so much. And then thanks for the council, mayor, and the councillors to giving me opportunity to talk today. I just wanted to highlight that the urgency for the Mississauga Embleton Community Center to be built is very high, because in our community we don't have anything close by, and then the families are having tough time getting spots in the far away community centers. We don't get any spots for swimmings or skating or other activities, and it is very difficult for us to give that opportunity to the kids to have benefits. Can we go to the next slide? Thanks, please. I just wanted to highlight the population and demographics growth in the area. This is for specifically Ward 6. We are having a high volume growth. From 2013 to 2021, almost like 100,000 people have been added to the area, and thousands of houses are coming up. Next slide, please. And this is just a graph by the population, age factor of the population. You can see there are so many people, like young kids and youth, who need this community center. That's why I wanted to highlight, and also people who are old. In the winters, there is not much activity outside. We don't have any, the playgrounds or anything where kids can go, or elder people can go and have some fun. So community center, a closed environment, is very much needed for the community. Next slide, please. This is another graph just showing the family structure. There are lots of people. So this community center, even though it is in Ward 6, it has a lot of impact to the Ward 4 and 5, because it's on the border of 4, 5, and 6, and this will be helpful for everybody. And I just wanted to highlight the family structure in the area. Mostly this is couples with children, and then lots of families here. And then mostly the housing structures are detached houses. Next slide, please. And then this is in 2017, when I moved in this area. There was a master plan from the recreation center, and they said this community center will be built between 2022 and 2025. And I've been asking for expediting from 2018 to make it by 2022, which never happened. But this is an opportunity for us. We can move it and then try to finish it before 2025, as it was planned in the 2017 master plan. I'll just read out some sentences from there. To be constructed between year 2020 to 2025, and this future community center would include an indoor aquatic center supported by a fitness center, gymnasium, youth space, and multipurpose program rooms. Next slide, please. These are some of the points highlighted which concerns us. Like we are paying the property taxes, one of the highest in GTA and even in Canada, I suppose. But there is no community center in Bram West, heavily populated area. We have I have numbers again. We have almost like 250,000 homes or have come up in the last 10 years in this area, and we did not get any community center. We have requested 5 years ago, it says 4 years, but we have requested 5 years ago to expedite the community center, but still there is no budget allocated. And today I wanted to advocate to include some funding for the project so that we can start the project ASAP. We have created petitions. We have got the signature from the residents. There are 2 petitions out there. I can forward you the links. It's in the presentation also. There were almost close to 1,000 people who signed the petition. And then there are many more. If I actually go and do some marketing, we will get more people to actually sign up. The nearest community center is Susan Fennell Sportsplex and Cassie Campbell, which are almost like from where I live, it's almost 10 kilometers apart. And it's very difficult for any of the family members to go during the peak hours, like in the evenings on a weekday. It is always busy roads and it takes half an hour or almost 40 minutes to go there.
Prashant, you've reached your 5 minutes. Can you wrap up, please?
Yeah, I will take 2 more minutes. So next slide, please.
Limit on delegations, I'll have to go to council and ask for a vote on adding time. Do we have any objections to add 2 minutes? No. Seeing none, Prashant, you can continue.
Thank you, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to, complete this because I don't only have 2 minutes and there are many slides. But I just wanted to say we reached out to the city in 2018, and we have been asking for this. We have been in constant touch with Michael Paleshi, councillor, and he has been very vocal and he has been very supportive. So we want this in this budget 2023. We want some budget for allocated for this project so that we can actually start the project, and then we can complete by 2025, which was initially planned in 2017 by the Plans and Recreation Center, and that's what it's all about. This will help the community from the mental health. I think Mayor, you also mentioned on February 15th, one of my resident in Ward 6 actually asked you a question, and then you have mentioned that there is a 124 million allocated for this overall parks, and this is part of that. But we don't see that in the budget, and we wanted that in the budget, official budget document. So that's what we are looking for. And then we have met the provincial and the federal elected members. They are supportive of it, so we can reach out to them if there is any support required from them also. That's it for me. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Councillor Paleshi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Prashant. There's been no bigger advocate out in the West End, asking for and pleading and talking to residents, trying to get this community center up and running. It's much needed. I know it's been on our radar for a while now, and I think one of the biggest issues that I had heard, especially coming out of COVID, was the labor shortage and the fact that we could push this, move it along, but we just weren't able to get it built. And I think we're in a little bit of a different spot than we were. Every year gets better and better from what I hear. So I look forward to having those future discussions and doing something in terms of trying to get this facility up and running. We've done some of the numbers, and within not even a long walk, a short walking distance, 60,000 people in areas of Ward 6, 3, and 5, or 4 and 5, that can definitely use this community center, that don't have that, so severely underserviced in probably the most severely underserviced area in the city when it comes to recreation. So I thank Prashant for your delegation. We'll see what we can do in terms of trying to get this moved ahead a little bit quicker. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Prashant. Just echo Councillor Paleshi. The delay, I know we've had some negative feedback on, and this is an area that's underserviced, and so I hope we can look at ways to expedite the construction of this much needed recreational amenity in the west end of the city. Our next delegation.
Before that, can we just have a motion?
Yes, please. Motion to receive the delegation, moved by Councillor Paleshi, seconded by Councillor Brar. All those in favor, motion carries.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the next delegation is from Glenn Coyle from Canada House, Veterans Ambassador. Glenn, you can come forward, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Welcome. Morning, Council. I'll move for some more time. You need a little bit more time, Glenn?
No, I'm good. Thank you, though. If I go over. My name is Glenn Coyle. I'm a ex-Canadian soldier. My job was a recon sniper, and I have PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. I refused to admit to myself, even when my doctors told me I had it. I refused to talk to anybody about it, even when healthcare professionals told me I needed to talk about it. And I was afraid how other people react. I've been deployed on multiple tours, including Afghanistan. I've been through war, I've been shot at, blown up, but yet here I stand. I've lost many close friends due to the war in Afghanistan, as well as the war when they return home. I've lost many friends due to mental health suicide, and it was at that point I felt lost and nobody would understand what I was going through. I came across Canada House and the PTJ, which is Post-Traumatic Growth Association, and this organization, I can honestly say, saved my life in the transition from soldier to civilian. I've made such a large impact in my life, which is the reason I'm standing in front of you today. As a former soldier, I know how tough it can be returning home. I'm also aware that in Brampton, there are many people caring who will support the people who fought for our country. The city of Brampton has countless passionate people who truly care about the people that protect us daily and keep our city streets safe. The mission of Canada House, which was founded by Canadian Forces veterans, is to help renew lives. Canada House was named after a safe haven gathering place in Kandahar, Afghanistan, for soldiers and allied forces. Canada House has helped over 1,400 Canadians and partnered with the PTGA, Post-Traumatic Growth Association, which is a company that strives to make veterans and first responders' lives more enjoyable. They offer events, peer support, social outings, woodworking classes, cooking classes, yoga, and many more. The PTGA offers a support system, creates a routine, and has helped so many veterans and first responders get their lives back. My role at Canada House is a veteran ambassador. My job is to connect veterans and first responders with social networks, peer support groups, create events for veterans and their families, and connect any veteran or first responder with employment once they reach civilian life. Military veterans who are active can enjoy their lives once again. However, it is a battle. To protect these brave men and women who fought in our country, to fight for this beautiful country, they need a safe environment. After being at war, I can personally say that a safe environment around other first responders and military feels like home. On my end, I will do whatever it takes, as many volunteer hours, to get these heroes the type of environment that is needed. Canada House and PTJ understand what it is to build a safe environment. Here are a few activities we've been hosting for free for our veterans and first responders. Woodworking classes. Woodworking classes give a purpose once again to the brave men and women who protect us. We have such positive feedback from them, letting us know that this was one of the best classes they've ever come to. They felt a sense of pride and joy in building in the woodworking class tables, chairs, benches, and fun projects like charcuterie boards, custom shelves, and welcome signs. The peer support and guest speaker groups. As I read, it's very important for members of our military, police services, paramedics, and firefighters to feel in a safe environment. At these groups, coffee and food are put on in a very casual and relaxed environment. A member of the Canada House family who is trained as a nurse and also trained in mental first aid can be on call. Trivia and bingo night, our first responders and military veterans can participate in a relaxed night where they can be social in very casual atmosphere. Guitars for vets and first responders. This program provides each veteran a guitar as well as 10 sessions to learn how to play. Veterans and first responders can learn how to jam with each other and feel a pride learning a musical instrument. Other things that PTJ offers are horse equine therapy, paint nights, game nights, golf days, and family friend events. The PTJ was created by veterans, for veterans, and first responders that have developed consequential injuries, both psycho and mental, from their service. Our tagline is making connections as our obvious aid to veterans to integrate back into regular civilian life. PTJ offers services from Atlantic Canada over to the Yukon. PTJ has already had 400 veterans this year in peer support events, on track to 2,500 this year. PTJ feels that it is essential for veterans and first responders to think of their families as support in their recovery journey. Quality of life improvement is necessary, and the whole family is essential. I feel that if we come together as a team, the City of Brampton can be the catalyst on positive change for our heroes and the people who fight to keep our city streets safe every day. At this time, I'm asking for a space to provide these services and help take care of our first responders and military veterans. Thank you for your time.
Councillor Plushy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Glenn, it sounds like this organization does a lot to help veterans in terms of your ask. Like we wouldn't have the knowledge to program something like that. You know, and I've always said, and you touched on it, you know, it takes a vet to help a vet, it takes an addict to help an addict, and that's, you know, prevalent through communities today. That's how we know how we can help. Space is something that, you know, we usually can find, but in determining, you know, the programming of it, what's your suggestion?
The programming, I 100% agree. Veterans talking to veterans, police talking to police, and that whole society. I believe that it takes a vet to kind of talk to a vet and to go in the ins and outs now. PTJ has trained nurses in background in nursing and first aid, mental health first aid, which all come together and create these programs. So it's a safe environment. We have the trained people, and we also have military veterans like myself as ambassadors that will continuously volunteer like day and night. Also, it's a safe place for people that are struggling. Any military first responders, they can come and just get out. I think everyone's been, you know, locked down for too long, and it's very difficult to get people that are active on duty, get them out and to get them reintegrated in the city.
So the acronym you used for that support service, what was that?
PTGA is Post Traumatic Growth Association, and we are in 15. We're in every province right now, and my location personally is in Barrie. I started an office there, but I'm from Brampton. I grew up in Brampton, and to be honest, the parades, the Remembrance Day parades in Brampton, are some of the best I've ever seen. You guys you put a lot of effort and care, and it shows.
Oh, thank you for that. So, and is that a not-for-profit organization?
Yes, it is.
It is, okay. Okay, thanks, Glenn, for coming.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Hold on.
Councillor Keenan.
Glenn, can you come back? Thank you for your delegation. I just want to clarify. So you're looking for space. Is that insane, similar to what you do in Barrie, that the programming itself would be run by this nonprofit organization?
That's right.
And so they run all the programs, they do everything. So for veterans, first responders, which are firefighters, paramedics, all the programming that is offered there is completely free to them?
Yes, everything that is offered by the PJGA is completely free. Materials, woodworking, class like that, everything is never a charge to any veterans or first responders.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Glenn, I guess the question I'd have is, I remember maybe in 2011, 2012 up in Simcoe County, I was involved in an effort to provide space to help veterans coming back from Afghanistan with the trauma of and the reality of PTSD, and we got that funded through D&D and Veterans Affairs at the time. At the time, you know, we're in the midst of the Afghanistan mission. What type of responses are we getting from Veterans Affairs to support something like that here?
My honest answer, they're busy, and it takes veterans that have kind of been through it to help other veterans. And I understand Veterans Affairs has all kinds of things they're dealing with. At the time, it's a 6-month waiting list to get a family doctor, to get anything. So anything pulling from Veterans Affairs, yes, they agree with it, but their arms are a little bit stretched right now. So that's why I feel that as a city and as organizations like Canada House PTJ, that we can put forward a solid effort and get, you know, our heroes taken care of.
Yeah, so I wonder if there's something we could do as a city, because up in Simcoe County, we've got the space and the programming 100% funded. I wonder if there's a way that if we amplify your request, it could get more attention, because they certainly have the budget capacity to help. It's I'd almost look to our staff, maybe do a little bit of research and find out what could we do to have a service like this, because certainly if they fund this service for veterans in other parts of the country, why wouldn't they in Brampton as well? I'm sure you would, just through indirect knowledge, know of a number of veterans in our community that would benefit from that type of help.
Absolutely. Brampton has a lot, like an overwhelming number of military veterans that have gone overseas to either Bosnia and Afghanistan. There is so many police that are retiring, and I truly believe that it can help so many people in this area. I've seen the things that Brampton can do as a city when they come together, and it's I feel that it would be a great, safe environment for everybody.
Yeah, and I would note, I think there's momentum for doing stuff like this. Look what the province right now is doing for firefighters, police, paramedics, first responders with the facility they're building in Caledon for the entire province. And so I think there's a real recognition to take mental health struggles more seriously. And so I think if there's ever a time for us to make this request on your behalf, I think the timing is aligned.
I appreciate it.
So thank you for speaking today.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Fertini.
Glenn, thank you for coming in. I didn't get, or you didn't mention it, how much space do you need? Is it commercial, industrial?
It would be a commercial space. Roughly the area right now that I'm working out of is about 2,500 square feet. There are some offices that are not being used in that space, but it's just a comfy atmosphere for people to get together, do events, things like woodworking classes. So I'd say anywhere from 2,000 above square feet in industrial.
Okay, good, thank you.
Councillor Santos.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for coming to delegate today and sharing a little bit of your needs and your requests as well. And just wanted to say thank you for your service and in terms of everything that you've sacrificed. And certainly, I'm sure that we'll find a way to look at the request moving forward.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Motion to receive the delegation. Moved by Councillor Keenan, seconded by Councillor Brar. All those in favor? Motion carries. Okay, this takes us to item 10.3, recording of traffic cameras at intersections. Back to you, Rob.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We do have a quick briefing in order to recognize the license plates and intersections using the ALPR cameras. We would need approximately 16 cameras per intersection. So one on each pole to be able to see the cars coming from all directions. Usually the intersections, we need a minimum of 5 lux, which is the light needed for the cameras to work. If we have that at all the intersections, we won't have to spend any extra money, but as you can see, there is approximately $10,000 to upgrade the intersections if needed. The total cost of revising, including licensing costs to do a 360 megapixel camera at these locations is approximately an additional $13,848,000. And then the ongoing licensing costs per year, which would go into the operating budget, would be approximately $262,000. We could do it over a 3-year to break that up. And in the meantime, we could go ahead with the original plan of the $1,037,000 and look at a 3-year span to do the rest. It is expensive, but the type of cameras and the number of cameras we need to be able to do that is quite extensive.
So, Rob, 13 million be the cost of all these cameras over what period of time?
So we could do it over a 3-year period. So we can start the program as initially brought to council in the other report, and then add these in as we go over a 3-year period, working with Peel Regional Police to look at the worst intersections down to the least worst intersections.
So how many intersections does this cover right now under the current proposal?
It would be 40.
40. And is there any capacity to get revenue back from that if there's people that are speeding, or that there's any revenue?
Through the chair, I would say not.
So you can't associate this with the speed enforcement cameras?
I'd have to look into it. It's a different camera, and I don't know if Kevin's online, but we could look into that part of it to see if the cameras can be a dual role. I don't know that they can.
If someone blows by an intersection 140 miles, 140 kilometers an hour, one, to be helpful for that street racing for the police, but, you know, it's also, it might become more revenue neutral if you had that capacity as well.
I know we do have cameras that we're looking at now that are more permanent for the ASE program that are $60,000 that would be able to do that. I don't know if these cameras can do both. So we'd have to look into that. And maybe Jason, you can speak to that if there is a capability.
The short answer is no, but whether or not it can be integrated with the type of cameras we use for the automatic speed, we'd have to look into.
And Kevin is online. Kevin?
Yeah. Through the chair, I don't believe that they can be used for automated speed enforcement.
So they would have to be separate cameras on top of that. However, we would generate revenue from that. That could offset this over a period of time.
Okay, Councilor Fertini.
Quickly, Rob, so we're paying for the cameras, we're getting zero back on their tickets?
Through the chair, no, if these cameras are separate from the ASC, the speeding cameras, we would get money back from the speeding cameras. But these cameras, we would not get any money back from. They are just to record the intersection.
Right.
So when we do have accidents or infractions that Peel Police need to look at, they would be able to use that technology.
So there's no tickets if someone runs a red light? There'll be no tickets issued, nothing? Just in case of accidents?
So through the chair, not with these cameras. There are red light cameras that are at certain intersections, but these couldn't do both, nor could they do the speeding ticket cameras as well either.
Okay.
Councilor Valeschi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Have we looked at the opportunity for funding sources from the province or federal government? Remember when the province gave Toronto a truckload of money for community safety stuff?
CCTV cameras. I think the province gave Toronto some money for the CCTV cameras in the challenging areas.
So through the chair, we haven't looked at that yet. We want to get these numbers to you as quickly as possible. We could definitely look at something like that to see if it can help us out.
Where would the funding source come from?
This would, General? Are you sure?
Asset replacement? Is that asset replacement based on increase of population, therefore it's development charge? Can't we just say stuff like that and then all of a sudden we can put DCs against it?
Sorry, through the chair, Councillor, I don't think this is part of our standard services, that's why it's not part of these. Is that correct? Yeah. But Reserve 4 is property based tax. Yeah.
What's this due to the 5 point, where are we at? 2 point, sorry, City of Brampton's. Our increase right now is looking at what?
Through the chair, that would be an increase on the operating side. This would be an increase on the capital side. So it wouldn't directly impact it.
Okay.
It will just take away from our capacity within the reserve itself.
Mm-hmm. And that reserve currently sits at how much?
So, Councilor, on annual basis, we come very close to completely utilizing all the balance that's in that reserve. We might have a little bit of balance in that, maybe 10 million or so, but we're usually very close to completely utilizing those that reserve.
And it's how much per year do we put into that reserve?
For the infrastructure and around 127,
Sorry.
134 this year.
134 million. Okay.
Okay, Councilor Keenan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the last meeting there, I had asked for the better cameras that would let us see license plates and stuff. And I get I know it was up coming down the screen, but what is the price difference between the cameras that'll just show us accidents and ones that can actually solve further crimes?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the difference in the camera quality, so for the license plate recognition, there are approximately $15,000 per camera. They're a dual camera combined into one, and it's approximately $10,000 more than the average camera.
So the price that the price tag that we're seeing here, is that for the regular cameras or is that for?
No, that's for the upgraded license plate recognition cameras.
Right. So realistically, it's a camera that'll give us much more protection within our community to solve crimes.
That is correct.
Other than that, we're putting cameras up in the case that there's an accident that we want to solve. But if it's a hit and run, we still couldn't see the license plate it's really just to solve that one little accident to see who was at fault. So I don't really see a use for those cameras. For me, I would get behind the ones that can actually do more for the community when it comes to solving crimes. So if that's what the price tag is, that's what it is. Thank you.
Councilor Keenan makes a good point. 3 to 4 years ago, we had a number of shootings on the 410, 403, and I remember asking our police administration why there were so many shootings on those highways but not the 407, and the response was well, there's cameras on the 407, and don't underestimate how sophisticated criminal organizations are. If there's a targeted shooting, they're going to look for a location they can get in and out of quickly. And at the time we said, well, we should make Peel Region a more inconvenient place to have a targeted shooting. And we applied for provincial funding and we got it, and now the Peel Police we have CCTV cameras on those highways. I haven't heard about any shootings in recent years. I want Brampton to be the most inconvenient place to commit a crime. I want this to be the worst place to conduct a criminal activity, and this is a tool to do that. And so, if this is, in terms of asset replacement, I guess I'd look for some wordsmithing of how we could refer this to be funded through asset replacement with the lens on applying for provincial funding like Toronto got for their CCTV cameras, and whatever other funding may be available. Because, if we start the ball on this, maybe we can get some funding to actually pay for it. I'd also love to look at what revenue capacity, generating capacity this has. Maybe there's something we can do to make these cameras compatible with a red light camera, with a speeding camera, where it actually would pay for itself. Our speed enforcement cameras are revenue neutral, largely. And so this is actually a higher resolution device. If anything, a superior device should be able to give us some capacity. Like if you go to the Peel Police and say, listen, we've got a license plate reader that you've recommended, video technology you've recommended, will you issue tickets? Is there a way we can do that with you? Because if you hit someone's pocketbook, as Councillor Pelletier, said 4 years ago, we talked about this automated speed enforcement devices. It changes behavior, and anyone that complains, you just say, don't speed. Don't run a red light. As simple as that. You don't want to get a big fat ticket, then alter your behavior. One thing that I learned from our experience with body-worn cameras for the implementation with the Peel Police, because I was on the board when we were doing that, was a big cost component is the storage of that data. So if there's a crime committed and the police come to you and say, listen, there was a shooting a block away, we want to look at the cars that fled the area, will we have that video from the week before?
To you, Mr. Chair, yes. Our video retention is 30 days.
Okay.
So we have 30-day window until it overrides.
Okay. And what's the cost of the storage?
That's built in. It's a virtual server, if you will.
Yeah.
So that's built into the price that you see.
Like I know with the body-worn cameras, the storage is more expensive than the devices.
Yes.
And so could you have a conversation with the Peel Police about a storage that is done in a manner that is, the last thing we'd want is have evidence that's saved but they can't use. So I just hope whatever we do is consistent in a manner that would be useful for their efforts. And I hope by going down this path, we are going to gain the reputation as a city that is the worst place to commit a crime, because we give additional investigative tools to our police to make sure anyone that commits an egregious act will be caught. So I will look to the clerk for the appropriate time to put forward a motion, but I would like language in it that includes revenue generation through collaboration with the police on tickets, and a request for funding from the province. And Councillor Footy's right, there is some way to be able to have connectivity with the courts.
Through the chair, can we just clarify, are we making the project contingent on provincial funding, or are we going ahead with that, but we would like to ask for funding?
Yeah, I think we go ahead from our asset replacement fund, but part of the motion says that we ask for a provincial contribution.
Thank
sort
you.
of similar to what we're doing with other projects like Riverwalk.
For sure.
I see Councillor Santos and Councillor Keenan have questions too.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, just a couple of questions. The cameras, are they just to identify cars involved in crime, or will they also be used? Like I saw the intersection of Queen and Kennedy, for example, which is a problem corner for Councillor Vicente and myself. Like, will they be used outside of just reading license plates, or just, capturing people loitering, the issues related to folks who are in the middle of the intersection asking for money directly at cars? We have ongoing issues and concerns on that intersection.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Councillor, the license plate recognition cameras are specific to picking up vehicle traffic in a laneway. The cameras, the 360s that we were talking about at the first report, those would be to cover the intersections and could be used for community safety, such as what you just described.
Okay. And so the proposal, just to be clear, is for the 13.8 million that I saw on the screen for the whole kit and caboodle?
Correct.
Okay. My next question is there was mention of reserve number 4. Can I just get a confirmation again? I'm sorry if I missed it, what we've got in that reserve right now?
Through the chair, Councillor, as I was explaining, we on an annual basis try to completely utilize that balance and allocate it to the capital projects as much as possible. I think we currently have about 10 million balance available within that reserve, again, roughly within that range.
Okay, and how much are we contributing to it this year to?
Overall, to all the reserve, we're contributing $134 million. And I think to Reserve 4 in particular, somewhere about 80 million, a little more.
Okay, you said 80 million, sorry?
Yes,
Yeah.
80 or a little more.
Okay, and that balance we normally use every year for different things?
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
We allocate to our capital program.
So based on this, it sounds like for 2023, there is enough room in that reserve budget to pay for that?
Yes, and we also, as part of deliberation, as a management team, we can go back and look at opportunities where we can maybe reallocate or suggest some reallocations for that.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Keenan.
Sorry, I'm just gonna come back here for a quick second based on some of the comments from my colleague. So, the cameras that catch the license plates won't also see the entire intersection? Like it's only going to now be for license plate recognition and not just, it kind of takes away from the public safety aspect of it.
So there's two components to the ask that we put forward. One was the 360 cameras for the intersection to capture any accidents or incidents that occur in the intersection itself. The second ask through you, Councillor Keenan, as well as Councillor Pleshy, was for the vehicle license plate recognition, as well as any vehicles that were thefts of vehicles or involved in robberies or any other criminal matter. The license plate recognition cameras can pick up the license plate as well as the vehicle description. So that is the only thing that those cameras are really good for. They do monitor the laneway, but not the intersection itself. And that's why each intersection would require approximately 16 cameras because you're covering one camera per lane.
But but is it recording 24/7?
That's correct.
So if there's one per lane, you can catch up other stuff that's happening in the intersection other than just a car running through it.
Correct. And
So would they be able, here's my question. Would they still be able to solve a crime of how an accident happened in that intersection with those cameras?
No, they would not.
It's kind of redundant. So just based on the first meeting, my understanding was in order to read the license plate, we need a better camera. So to me, that was it could do both. But now I'm finding out that it only reads license plates and car descriptions, which is great, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't.
Yeah, maybe the Commissioner of Legislative Services can speak to this too. I thought there was cameras that the police were using in Toronto that would get both, that Councillor Keenan is referring to.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The cameras that my peers are talking about are for license plate readers, but you can go a little bit higher, you can go better quality cameras. And what you don't want to miss is a license plate is only as good as the numbers on the license plate. If it's stolen, it doesn't tell you anything past who's driving it, any of that. So you have to look towards a camera that's going to give you a more wholesome picture within the intersection. From my previous experience of over 3 decades, I can tell you that we're looking for more evidence than just the license plate. We're looking for clothing. We're looking for facial. We're looking for mannerisms. I mean, we've solved, and JP could tell you, we have solved crimes by the way people walk. A gait, a crutch, whatever. So all of that is what we want. So if you're looking to do this just for the license plate reader, you're wasting your money.
Yeah.
If you're looking to do it as a crime prevention initiative, as a CPTED initiative, crime prevention through environmental design, you need to put a more robust camera out there. And the more robust camera will give you a better lens of view, focus. It will pick up more than the intersection, but stay within the FOI, the freedom domain of people's rights. It will give you colors of the lights. So this camera might get the driver coming through, but this camera might show you that this light was red or green. So there's a lot more evidentiary value to a better camera. Peel Police will come and tell you that. I don't think they would dispute what I'm saying.
Okay, thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I think that's what we're looking for, was the best camera. And I used being able to read the license plate, but I wasn't looking for the aspect of that's all we're doing. So is there a camera that can do what we're asking it to do, or is that the first camera?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to answer your question, yes, the first camera is what we're looking at, the 360. But if you're looking at the AI component on top of the license plate recognition to the best of our abilities, then you need to have that integrated approach, which is the 360 camera as well as the license plate recognition cameras.
So you need to put them all together.
Correct.
Is that what we're seeing all together?
That's what you're seeing in the 13 million. It includes the 360 cameras. It's the whole package.
Okay, so, now I'm following along. So with that, we have we're getting both.
Yes.
For that price, we get both.
Yes.
Okay. Those are my questions, thank you.
So, this is something I really want to do. I want to make Brampton the most inconvenient place to commit a criminal offense, but I think Councillor Keenan sort of touched into an area that we need to make sure we have the right technology. What I'm going to suggest is we stand this item down until we can get some additional information. I know this is a tool that the police believe will be very helpful, but let's make sure that we don't limit ourselves in terms of the evidence that it can provide. And so maybe in the interim, while we stand this item down, someone could reach out to our friends in the city of Toronto and find out, or the Toronto police, in terms of the non-highway CCTV cameras they have and what type of cameras they're using. This was when they brought them in 4 years ago. I remember there was in the news a fair bit, or maybe 6, 7 years ago, but they were the first city to start utilizing these cameras. Councillor Fertini, before we stand the item down.
Thank you. Yeah, and I agree. Can we also look if we could generate money on the tickets on this camera? Because if we look at the amount, even if we put percentage out there, instead of doing so many intersections, we put half. But with the money we're collecting, we could continue buying more cameras over the year and just do a lot of intersections. If you're just gonna get the plate for an accident or investigation, so you're hoping to generate some money too. Through the chair.
And I know Deputy Chief Nick Milanovic is the lead on technology for the Peel Police. Maybe there can be a conversation with him in the interim, and we just stand this item down until we have more information. I know we still have a lot of budget deliberations to go. Deliberations. So thank you. I see no more questions. Do we need to receive the? No. Okay. Deliberations. 10.4, responses to questions raised at Budget Committee deliberations, committee questions and debate.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, that was a package of responses to questions that was provided to Budget Committee in the clerk's email about noon today. It is with the agenda, so I don't know if staff are intending to go through these responses or just members can ask questions with regard to this material.
Okay, Councillor Fertini.
Yeah, thank you. I think we talked about this before, Mayor. Did we pass anything about the seniors' free gyms? I kind of missed it, and did it pass? In the past, we did, you know.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and members of the committee, there was a report on the agenda that was considered, I believe, on the 28th, and the report itself was received, and there was a motion introduced by Councillor Santos, and perhaps, Charlotte, we can bring it up on the screen. I believe it's to deal with 10.2 on the draft motion. So the committee's already turned their mind to it, and will turn its mind to it again before this meeting wraps up, when committee goes through all the recommendations.
Okay, I just was, as long as it passed, it went through, I kind of missed it because I got a lot of seniors calling on that. Okay,
Sorry, maybe it's 8.2.
thank you.
Councillor Santos.
Thank you. Just before I begin, Mr. Chair, just clarification, we could bring forward any questions or items, Mr. Clerk, at this time, or is this just specific to the various questions that were presented at 12 noon today?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to members of committee, my advice to committee is now is the time if members have motions, proposals, that they come forward now, because there's nothing left for committee to consider except the actual motions.
Great.
And then the committee's work is done.
Okay, I know we all have a lot of motions, so Councillor Santos, let's start us off.
Thank you. So we've had a number of conversations about the arts and in particular support for the arts and some space that's going to be taken away as well as possible limited but maximized access to the Lester B. Pearson Theatre. And so over the past few days, I've been having some conversations with staff on how we can accommodate and prioritize space for the arts in Brampton. And I believe over the past year or so, together with Brampton Arts Organization, there has been a plan and ideas in place regarding the Arts Hub, a community arts hub where the Brampton Arts Organization would be housed. And so through that, I do have a motion prepared together with staff regarding expediting the creation or the design of the Community Arts Hub, Arts and Culture Center in Brampton. And yeah, there it is. So this would actually allow us to expedite the process for our arts community to finally have a permanent home. And that permanent home would be at Queen and McLaughlin, just across the street from Ward 1 and 5, but at the Flower City campus, at the corner of Queen and McLaughlin. Staff have already been looking at that particular building, the old police station, and as you can see from the motion in the whereases, that particular building will cost a lot of money, not to just renovate, but to actually access and enter. It will, because it's so hazardous and so problematic, it's $1 million, around $1 million to even open the door. So that being said, this motion, number one, looks at delisting the heritage site to allow for demolition of it. Number two, begin and expedite the process of design and demolishing that building for the Arts and Culture Center, which is going to be the arts permanent home, Brampton Arts Organization's permanent home. Number three, that the amount originally allocated of only $60,000 be removed. And then number four, that the CAO begin the begin the process to expedite this particular project. And so this will mean a lot for us in the arts community, and I've had a conversation with a number of my colleagues over the past few days about this. I believe Councillor Keenan also has an amendment. Thank you, that's the motion.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Councillor Santos, we understood there was an amendment to clause 2, which is shown on the bottom. Are you moving that as the main motion?
Correct, yeah. So that's just an amendment to the wording, just because we're not demolishing the Arts and Culture Center, we're demolishing the building identified in number 1, and the design of an Arts and Culture Center to be funded from Reserve 4.
Thank you.
A great suggestion, Councillor Santos. Do any councillors want to speak to the item? Councillor Keenan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you to Councillor Santos for doing all the due diligence and finally trying to find a place for the Arts Hub to have a permanent home. I am excited that it will be in one of my wards. I'm just going to ask for a friendly amendment to the motion, that it includes some community space and amenities. I know in mine and Councilor Madeira's wards, we're always looking for extra. So if that could be included, I would appreciate it. But I'm excited to see this go through and fully support it.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. So where is the proposed amendment?
I think it could go under 2 or 4, under 2.
I can help you. I think it, if you, Mr. Clerk. So I would accept that as a friendly amendment. So under item number 2, Arts and Culture Center, including accommodations for community space, right? And then under number 4, that last sentence, purpose-built arts and culture center, including accommodations for community space. And I will just add to Councillor Keenan's comments, although it is in Ward 4, many of our residents would be using that anyway, because it's just across the street. So really, it's for wards, 4 and 5.
It's for Brampton. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Pelletier.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Chair, I've looked at some of the items in the budget, and I know that we've talked about in the past. We've talked about the animal shelter, and it's gone places and pulled from places, and ultimately, it's really needed. I think we've landed on a site, the Siemens site, to house the animal shelter in the West End. I see that there is, in the 2024 capital budget, there's $3.5 million allocated towards the design of the animal shelter. And, in recent talks about the Environmental Education Center and kind of the course and the direction that was going on with with Credit Valley Conservation Authority and establishing an MOU, and then now that MOU, I believe, falls apart this year. I think it expires, and which it so should be, because really, the changes of legislations, in particular, 109 and Bill 23, takes a lot of the ability for conservations to be able to fund and fundraise, and so I truly believe that Environmental Education Center should be built by us, and I certainly think that the Credit Valley Conservation Authority can certainly program it. I think they got some fantastic ideas and great things for the youth. I go back to why I put this Environmental Education Center forward in the first place, just with the fact that schools found it too expensive to go up to Ballinfad, to go up to Terracotta in buses, and children, our kids, weren't learning about the environment as much as we feel that it should be. It's one of the fastest growing changes in workplace, in schooling now. It's getting a lot of positivity towards it, and I think that this is one step in the right direction that we can provide to our youth. So I have a motion that is now being put on the screen, and I'll read it out for everyone. Whereas the building design of the animal shelter design is listed under the forecasted 2024 capital budget, whereas the City of Brampton is slated to begin the planning and design of the new animal service center under the 2023 proposed operating and capital budgets. The City of Brampton is committed to ensuring a sustainable and resilient community, whereas residents safely coexist with wildlife and natural ecosystems. Whereas environmental resiliency is listed as a key goal in the 2023 proposed operating and capital budget. Whereas the City of Brampton's commitment towards facilitating the coexisting of our residents with wildlife and natural ecosystems, as well as the commitments towards environmental resiliency and responsibility. Whereas a report from the Institute for Sustainability was received in February 2019, highlighting an environmental education center as a vision for 2040 priority. Whereas a motion was passed on December 20th, 2019, directing the formation of a partnership between the Community Energy and Emissions Reduction Plan and the Institute for Sustainable Brampton to establish a comprehensive strategy and action plan to address environmental concerns. Whereas in September 2020, Council unanimously passed a motion to endorse, in principle, the recommended organizational model and approach for developing the Center of Community Energy Transformation, formerly known as the Institute for Sustainable Brampton, further directing that the initiative be presented at the regional level for endorsement and expansion. Therefore, be it resolved, the $3.5 million allocated towards the new construction of the animal shelter be moved from the forecasted 2024 capital budget to the 2023 capital budget. That the allocation of this $3.5 million be leveraged to design the Environmental Education Center and the animal shelter as a joint complex and maximize efficiencies. That the Environmental Education Center design concept includes space dedicated to the Center of Community Energy Transformation as part of the city's commitment towards environmental resiliency, where it be simultaneously served as an educational tool for the community. That's the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor, is this a friendly amendment to Councillor Santos's motion? No. Okay, so we're going to vote on Councillor Santos's motion first, or? Oh, that's confusing. Okay, so I asked if there are any speakers to Councillor Santos's motion.
Okay, so the proper course of action is to put forward all the motions.
So put them all forward and then come back to them?
That's up to you.
Yeah. Why don't we?
I'm putting forward my motion.
Okay. So why don't we vote on Councillor Santos's motion? Everyone seems to be in agreement. We can. Yeah. Okay. There's no one else who wants to speak to Councillor Santos's motion. Can we have it up on the screen?
Just a moment and we'll come back to it. And I'm presuming as we're coming back to it, even though we're taking votes on it now, is there still agreement for committee at the end that we're going to vote on
Yes.
everything again? Go through every motion?
If that's the standard protocol.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Councillor Singh, did you want to speak to Councillor Santos? Okay, so all those in favor of Councillor Santos' motion? The motion carries. Thank you, Councillor Santos, for being a champion for the arts. Councillor Peleshi's motion is on the floor. Who wants to speak to Councillor Peleshi's motion? I see Councillor Keenan and Singh. Councillor Keenan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And here goes Councillor Keenan with his friendly amendments. Trying to sneak myself into everybody's motion, so be prepared for it over the rest of the meeting. I do know that based on today's delegation when it comes to veterans, I know that the city of Brampton had a special council meeting on March 9th. And following that, a staff report came out. The City of Brampton Veterans Program, staff were directed to enhance the City of Brampton's outreach and actively support members of the Canadian Armed Forces and veterans to promote employment opportunities and establish partnerships with external community partners and engage in the community events. Whereas the City of Brampton is committed to strategies designed to prioritize community safety and well-being and should therefore include incentives focused on mental health and well-being of war veterans and our first responders. So I'm asking that we may include in this motion, Councillor Peleshi, to during the design phase of the Environmental Education Center and the Animal Shelter, that a space be created for veterans and first responders and include a component that explores possible program partnerships between the joint complex and veterans and first responders, whereby the former will serve as the safe space for the latter to actively engage with the community. That the City of Brampton engage in a partnership with Canada House to administer the space for the purpose of actively supporting members of the Canadian Forces and veterans and our first responders. I do believe during the conversation, the delegation, that Mayor Brown, you may want to add a part to do with funding here.
Yeah, just a friendly amendment that if D&D or Veterans Affairs funds the space elsewhere, there's no reason that we shouldn't request that the space be funded here as well, and that we meet whatever RFP requirements they have. they're willing to give
I don't
Simcoe
know
County
the
money for this, then
what is it, what is the, yeah, what is the, give me 1 second, Peter, because I might change Canada House to the abbreviated, I think it might be more appropriate. I gotta find it though.
Because I didn't ask if Canada House was not for profit.
He's gonna send me the. So instead of Canada House, Peter, can we put in the PTGA?
And so just, Peter, the wordsmithing on that would be the funding for space and operations.
Do you want to know what it stands for? Post-Traumatic Growth Association.
Sorry, through you, Mr., let's deal with one and then at a time, just please. Yeah.
I was first, Peter.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, is that the intent of your amendment at the bottom in red?
Or Veterans Affairs, I forget which one was the one that funded the one up in Simcoe County. Department of National Defense and/or Veterans Affairs. We all pay federal taxes and we deserve the same funding that exists elsewhere in the country.
And then to Councillor Keenan's
So,
point,
yeah, just-
replacing Canada House with PTGA?
With PTGA, Post-Traumatic Growth Association.
I know, Councillor Keenan, does that summarize your
Yes.
motion? Before we go to Councillor Singh, just for the wording, I know Chris from GR was here, but just to make sure that formally, GR will, I don't think they need it to be included in the motion, but just to formally request that funding. Is it- yeah. Councillor Singh.
Yeah, I just want to understand, I want to know that I understand. So originally, 3.5 million was allocated toward animal shelter. And now we're moving it up to 2023, and we're going to do an animal shelter and an environmental education center. Is that the intent of the motion? Okay, plus we're going to do a post-traumatic growth association. That's the intent of the motion amendment by Councillor Keenan. That's what we understand? Okay, just want to make sure I understand. I am supportive of this.
Councillor, we're talking about the design phase here.
Yeah, then later
Yeah.
on. Yeah. I can anticipate. That's what 3.5 not going to be enough for. Yeah, but that's.
I'll find the money next year.
Yeah. Okay. Well, no, we could probably get sponsors and stuff to help out too. But anyway, to bring it all in-house and do it in one center instead of multiple centers, I think it's a good idea. So I'm good.
Okay. The motion is on the floor. All those in favor, motion carries. Okay. Councillor Santos and Palashi, more motions? Okay, Councillor
Questions,
Santos.
questions. Through you, Mr. Chair, so there has, we are adding a few things to the budget, which obviously we all support. And I'm just wondering, going through this binder in more detail over the past week, if we could take back to staff to come back to council or to the special council meeting on the budget on Thursday to identify any potential savings or projects that perhaps are no longer necessary, especially if if there's been a change of scope or change in terms of the original intent of what the project was supposed to be supporting. If we could go back and come back on Thursday to identify where those possible opportunities may be to help cover some of the costs of these things being added, that would be great. And that being said, I also wanted to bring up, because we talked about it in item 10.3, safety and traffic safety. How much money do we have in our budget right now, and we just had a briefing on this, with respect to traffic calming measures for 2023?
So through the chair to Councillor Santos, there is no budgeted money at this point for 2023.
Okay, so the speed humps are not budgeted? I thought we have speed humps budgeted.
That's 2022 capital funds.
22 capital funds, okay. Okay, so, and so how much do we have right now allocated to support speed humps? Because we had this debate as well.
So through the chair to Councillor Santos, we put aside 200,000 in 2022. There is some leftover money as per our discussions today
Yeah.
with Kevin. But we would, if we want to tackle a good portion of those roads that we showed you,
Yeah.
we would need further funding in 2023.
Okay. So I think that as we are, you know, because we know that speeding and traffic calming is a big issue, and we're getting a lot of requests for speed humps. I'm wondering on Thursday when staff, like, we're just trying to squeeze and find the money that will pay for the priorities across the city. And if there are projects that no longer meet the original intent from what it was originally for, then perhaps we could trade that off or look at ways to pay for more speed humps and some of the other factors. So if we can bring that back on Thursday, that would be awesome.
So through the chair to Councillor Santos, we can definitely do
Okay,
that.
thank you. Do we need a motion for that for Thursday, or can you bring that back as like a question? Yeah, okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Councillor Kim, you want to speak to Councillor Santos's point? Do you want to speak to Councillor Santos's item? Okay. Councillor Palacio on Councillor Santos's item.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. We're not going to start picking and choosing who speaks. I think Councillor Santos brings up a really good point, and there's a lot of work that's kind of been out there that we feel now has kind of, the scope has changed a little bit, and I think we need to, start identifying some of those things that, the direction and the ball is still moving, but it's not 100% what council got behind at that time. In terms of, the Civic Center alone, there's $100,000 that is going into some of the maintenance of the Civic Center. I don't think that we need to have $100,000 in the budget for any type of maintenance towards the Civic Center, especially if we're looking into the agreements that we're looking into. And then that standard response to, maintenance and services includes some of the things that I would have thought and maybe pointed towards, fire being the housing of one particular item, if it was, fire, life safety in those. I know they're probably more mechanical and they need to be driven by, that department, but inspections and stuff like that, when it comes to, I always, and I've talked about this before, Chief, and you've probably heard me, I'd rather our people were doing those types of inspections than hiring external partners to come out and do those types of inspections. Now, if it's a different license, different schooling altogether, then I still think at some point we need to get our heads around that, because that's a service that we can offer, out to others maybe as a revenue tool. In this budget, there's $2,000 for the Bovaird House. And I'm not sure why we're putting $2,000 into the Bovaird House when we're having those discussions now about, what does the Bovaird House look like to us on a go forward? And, we own the property, but we don't operate it. $80,000 for a security system. And, $80,000 for a security system and it includes, firmware testing, upgrading. look at that and think, well, in IT, you know, that would be somewhat that I would want to manage something like that. And whether they're managing and directing, you know, I would want to associate that monies in that area of the city. On Heart Lake, the Heart Lake preventative maintenance of HVAC systems in the Heart Lake group of rec centers. And I think this is actually the first time I've ever heard Heart Lake group of rec centers, even though it's been used since way before, I think, our time, Rob, your time and my time. But $36,000, and, you know, the Heart Lake group of rec centers is Loafers Lake, Jim Archdeacon, Snell Grove, I believe. You know, when I look at a budget, I want to be able to, maybe it's earmarked for those group of rec centers, but I want to be able to know, you know, after the fact, that where that money went, because I need to understand what else differently can we be doing. Like Jim Archdeacon, we've redone the roof, and then we had problems, and then we had to go back and do some roof upgrades again, and then wall upgrades. And so I want to make sure that that the money isn't being lost in terms of, you know, allocating to, you know, a bigger fishbowl when it's one particular fish that seems to be the issue. Victoria Park pylon sign, $200,000. I don't fully know what that means with Victoria Park, and I know that's for the 2024 budget, but I don't fully understand what a pylon sign.
So, through the chair to Councillor Pellecci, the road sign that you see that we just replaced at Loafers Lake, for instance, that's what they're talking about, is the road sign that's on Avondale Boulevard, is at its end of life cycle. And when we do the new facility, we would put in a new road sign. We call it a pylon sign, but basically that's what it is.
So why wouldn't we incorporate that cost in then to the greater building of Vic Park?
We could. We could make it part of the FF&E of the facility.
Is there an opportunity to find, like, if we were to add that into it, wouldn't there be efficiency?
We could definitely look at that. I don't know if there would be an efficiency specifically, because we do them through a different company for all fire halls and rec centers.
Mm-hmm.
But we can definitely look into that for you.
And the Vic Park RFP's been, it's out there, like it's, that's, you know what, it's a discussion to have in 2024 regardless, because it's not slated until then. But the other one was Howden, the $50,000 for Howden in this year, and then another $50,000 for Howden for next year.
So through the chair to Councillor Pellecci, that is a preventive maintenance program. So it's the Howden group of buildings, again, which includes Terry Miller, Greenbrier, and then eventually Howden. So
that's a group of rec centers.
Correct. So the recreation supervisor and coordinator take care of all the buildings in that area. And we can look to exactly what the split is on that, but we'd have to go back to recreation to building specific.
Okay. I guess when going through the budget, this budget binder is as confusing. It's the most confusing budget binder I've ever seen. I think it's been difficult to navigate through, especially when, you know, coming off the regional budget. Regional budget was very department oriented. Everything that I needed was in that department, was in that section. And I found with this budget, I had to kind of go over to find things, and I found it difficult. So, but that's a discussion for another day, and I'll be going after the chair and vice chair of budget to change things on a go forward. The $1,000 for the Heritage Theater. I understand that, you know, we continue to possibly pump money into a Heritage Theater because council has yet to make a decision. And that's one of those, we just need to have it there just in case, right?
Absolutely, and we have to keep the Heritage Theater in working condition just to make sure that we don't have any mold issues or any of those, so that everything's got to continue to work in the facility. And so if anything breaks down, we would have to repair it right away.
But the Heritage Theater is currently, like, it's shut down, it's condemned, right? So what $1,000 would we need to? Maintain the condemned signs or the do not enter sign? I know that people have been trying to get in there as well. Somebody was actually living in there, wasn't there?
Through the chair to Michael Palishi, Councillor Palishi. So at Heritage Theatre, we still have a functioning, fire and lights, fire panel.
Right.
Right. And then you have intrusion monitoring system as well there. So we just kept aside those $1,000 just to maintain it.
Okay. All right. Just going back to Councillor Santos's comments, I look forward to having something on Thursday, because I do feel like, maybe direction has changed a little bit in terms of, what we are able to get, what we, why council made a decision at the time to go that route. See if we can come up with something. So I look forward to that coming back Thursday, Councillor?
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Keenan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, hearing Councillor Santos' comments on the road safety and the speed humps, and this is something that we've been talking about for quite some time, and it's an issue in everybody's area. To see no line item to increase the budget for road safety measures and speed humps is a little concerning to me. So I definitely, listening to the conversations, there may be some projects coming out, and wondering if we slate some of that money, if found, into the possibility of more speed humps. I had a meeting as early as this morning to try to allocate the rest of the budget that we have, myself and Councillor Medeiros were in, and we accomplished one street, and the budget was gone. So I don't know how we're going to push forward on tackling road safety when we're dealing with, being able to only accomplish one street, and then the following year, we're not allocating any money or upping that reserve or whatever it is, that budget item for more speed humps. So Peter, you did say that we would need a motion in order to, I think I'll draft one. I think I'll draft a motion. That doesn't have to be right this second. I'll get it done and sent to you. Around just increasing that original 800,000, increase it up to in around the $2 million mark, if the funds can be found through projects that are no longer required. I think it needs to. I'll find a way to draft it, but I'll get it to you shortly.
Okay.
Thank you.
While Councillor Keenan is drafting the motions, maybe I can present a few of the motions that we've drafted. I know there's 5 that I've been working on with different councillors. The first one was actually in relation to Councillor Keenan, who just left. We'll bring him back so he can move this with me. I believe Councillor Medeiros is on the line. Will want to move this as well. This is for the park in a certain subdivision that is being. I think we're not going to be. It's the Moncton subdivision, but if we put the wording on the screen.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just a moment, and we'll pull that motion up.
And this would be to be moved by myself and second by Councillors Keenan and Medeiros.
Right there.
Okay. Councillor Medeiros, can you hear us on the phone?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, and Councillor Keenan? Okay, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries. Our next item is we have a motion on outdoor rinks, and I'll briefly speak to this. I believe Bill has provided the motion to the clerk. As we've learned this year, we purchased outdoor boards and rinks at Peel Village and Borum and Duggan Park. Duggan Park had artificial freezing underneath, and they used a parking lot, and because of that, they had a great season. Unfortunately, they weren't even able to have skating on the Rideau Canal this year. Climate change is a reality we have, and it makes traditional winter operations more challenging than ever before. And so a way that we can still benefit from the equipment we purchased is our Commissioner of Community Services came up with a way that we could use this amenity all year long, whether it is skating in the winter through the artificial pipes underneath, like we have at Duggan Park, at Gage Park, and Chinguacousy Park, but it could be used at the choice of local councillors for soccer, basketball, ball hockey in the summer. And so we have a motion we can put on the screen that would make it similar to the amenity we have elsewhere. And this is development charges funded. And I suggest it be because it's this would be in Awards 2 and 6 and Awards 3 and 4. All those in favor? Motion carries. Our next item is a request from our communications department based on the usage we have of, and Peter, this was emailed to you as well. We put on the screen based on the amount of teletown halls and voice drops and press conferences we do. I believe there's an anticipated $174,000 shortfall. And this will make sure we can continue the engagement that we do. Anyone opposed? Oh, sorry, Councillor Santos.
Thank you through you, Mr. Chair. So I agree in terms of covering that shortfall, but and I've brought this up many times before already as well. There is a significant amount of work to be done with respect to communications, given the Bill 23, given the transformations across the city, given increased development applications, given economic development that's booming in the city. All good news. I just don't know if we have enough resources within strategic communications to keep up with all of that work, in addition to basic things, like the parks and recreation programs, cultural events, as well as last-minute demands from mayor and council with respect to communications in our community. So I do support this motion. I don't know at this point in time whether or not it's enough, and if we actually need more resources to accommodate the demands that we have on the communication side. So I know that there in the budget questions in that package that we received, I guess it would have been a couple of weeks ago now, there were 3 specific requests for additional staff to help top up the support in our communications department. I'm happy to add that to this motion today, if we can, in order to accommodate the needs in communications.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, so if, I just need the guidance from finance, is that included in the budget submission or not? And if it's not, we need wording on what that motion will actually say.
Okay, so maybe, like, this is specific to telephone town halls and Stratcom, so this is the budget estimate for the voice drops, teletown halls, and press conferences from Stratcom. I don't have the additional costing, but maybe, I'm happy to support that as well, but maybe we can pass this and then and do additional motion. Yeah, perhaps.
The cost.
Yeah, so maybe that's a follow-up to staff to see how we would accommodate those extra roles requested from communications and bring that back either tomorrow or Thursday.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So this is moved by Deputy Mayor Singh. All those Oh, Councilor Palashi, sorry.
Sorry, I don't think I'm following along. And I'll wait till Thursday, but I need to understand, you're offering more people into comms? Is comms asking for more people?
Jason, through the chair, Councillor Palashi, at one of the workshops, I believe Councillor Santos asked if we had enough, and I put forward some options that if it was council's wish to provide that additional support, those are the areas where it would be best utilized. So I believe those are in the answer to that, and the roles we'd look for are listed in Nash, correct me if I'm wrong, one of the, it's kind of that answers document that went back to all of council. I believe you have that now for the questions asked in the budget workshops.
Yes, it's in the supplementary document that was provided last week on Monday. Those are the follow-ups to the answers to the pre-briefing sessions that we had with the councillors.
Okay, so I need to get into this because this is coming out of nowhere for me. So as far as I'm concerned, when staff come forward with asks, that's what's in the budget. So with respect to FTEs.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Palashi. Maybe I can speak a little bit further on that. We, of course, before we present the budget to the committee, senior leadership had sat around the table and tried to lean out the budget as much as possible. And so what was presented in terms of full-time employees as additional complement to corporate services was a lean version in what we could live with for 2023. We did ask for additional funding to contract out some video programming to relieve some of the pressure to staff. The response, I guess, to Councillor Santos is really in a perfect world where there was enough funding and there weren't pressures to keep the tax increase as low as possible. Would we have asked for those additional 3 resources? Yes. But you know, in light of the situation where we're trying our best to keep the taxes down to minimal increase, we did limit our ask as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I guess what I need to see, and hopefully by Thursday, is some kind of business case. Because I've been very consistent in questioning on the department's budgets they have associated with communications and community engagement. So it's not just one particular department that has funding to provide this service. It's spread out amongst other departments as well. And I asked the question to Jason, does he hold the budgets for any other particular departments? And no, he doesn't hold those budgets. Each departments have the departments that have their budgets associated to, they have monies. So I need to see some kind of business case if we're going to be adding, especially at now $174,000, I think, dollars is what Mayor Brown just added, plus 3 FTEs.
So Councillor Palashi, this might be helpful. The aspect of the FTEs, that Councillor Santos said she was going to stand down, get that information from Stratcom and report back. Right now, we're only dealing with the
Mr. Mayor, right now we are dealing with the budget, and Councillor Santos asked some questions, and I'm asking about those questions. I'm trying to just further some clarification, because I'm a member of this council, and I'm asking those questions. There's no particular item that we're dealing with, when or where. If you're calling a motion on, if you're calling a vote on a particular motion, a motion that one councillor asked to amend, I think I have the right to ask those questions.
You do, but she did say she was going to bring it up again.
Right. And I was on the board before she said that to ask questions.
Okay. Any additional questions?
None.
Okay. we have the initial motion on the floor. All those in favor? Motion carries. Our next item is on winter optimization. We have that motion from Bill Boyce. Okay. I'm happy to speak to that. So, and there's a part to be added to that too, I believe. I saw maybe while I speak to this, the commissioner can get you the second part of that motion. And what the notion behind this is, you know, we build recreation for the purpose of good weather. The good weather is more limited in Canada. And so, you know, right now we do a lot as a city encouraging healthy lifestyles as we grapple with rising rates of childhood obesity and diabetes complications. And one way we can push back against that is encouraging healthy lifestyles by having great recreational amenities. Well, we've got some fantastic recreational amenities in the city that we can't use 7 months of the year. And so, after speaking to members of council about this, there may be opportunities in which we can look at using new technologies to winterize some of the amenities that traditionally would only be used in that May to October timetable. And so a good example of an amenity that we use in the summer and now we've winterized is what we have at Save Max. Where Save Max, you've got the soccer fields that are used in the summer, in the spring, in the fall, but in the winter we're able to capture that as well. And I know from hearing back from members of council, there's a few of them that were even using it last night, as it's a very popular amenity that seems to be busy all the time. Well, there are other areas that could be replicated. You look at the fields that we just named after the Olympic gold medal champion Ashley Lawrence and Kadisha Buchanan. That's artificial turf. So you'd be able to winterize that relatively inexpensively. You know, you look at the tennis bubble we have at Shinkuzi Park in Wards 7 and 8. Well, the downtown group has been asking again and again about the ability to winterize. You can't get court time. You know, we get complaints all the time. I've seen sometimes I've walked into that bubble and there's heated arguments because no one can get time. The last thing I want to see is residents being turned away just because they want to get exercise. We want to make it, everyone that wants to be active and healthy, we want to enable that. And so those are just a few examples. I talked to Deputy Mayor Singh about maybe the potential to optimize, winter optimize some of the basketball courts in the East End. I certainly know the cricket community would jump at the opportunity if there was, you know, an opportunity to play cricket in a dome in the winter. And so this would start that process to run a pilot project in a few areas of the city for the 2023-2024 winter. And if it works, maybe we can expand it further. But just to look at a few opportunities where we could try out optimizing the season so that we could use some of the recreational amenities that we have 12 months a year, not 5 months a year. And it was just the other day that Councillor Keenan was highlighting some of the new technology that's available where we can do this in a manner that might not have been possible a few years ago, where you can winterize a recreation amenity and take it down so that you can enjoy the agreeable weather when it's there. And so this would be part of the end of it as part of the 2024, it would be for the purpose of the 2023-2024 winter season. And then period. And the commissioner would report back to us on how this could be achieved and what would be potentially through development charges. I don't think you need to include that part, just knowing that and how quickly do you think we could get that back, Commissioner?
Through the mayor, as soon as budget's passed, we'll look for a consultant to work with and understanding the timelines. We'll try to get back as soon as we can.
Okay, okay. Councillor Santos.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, happy to support this. I'm, always happy to support folks being active as much as possible, even throughout the winter seasons. But that being said, you do bring up a good point about climate change. We talked about the ice rinks and having refrigeration, dealing with challenging weather, and now this, looking at optimization and doing things that are like the outdoor basketball courts that you'd mentioned in Councillor Singh's area, and seeing how we could create a situation where people can continue using it in the winter. At the same time, climate change is also causing issues for us with other recreation and other sort of amenities across the city. So I have mentioned this to staff before, but I am wondering if we could, and I'm not going to amend this motion, but at some point we need to look at optimization and or even value for money for some things that we're currently providing, which battling climate change may not be of use. We can't maximize the use of those amenities or those programs anymore because of warmer weather. Like, for example, you could only control the melting of ice and snow so much. And if we're investing more and more into different programs that require, snow and ice, and then we're fighting a losing battle with climate change. And so I just put that out there for us to also look at in the future, and Councillor Brar and I will be working with a community services team to look at what some of those issues and challenges are as we battle climate change. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Santos. Motion on the floor, all those in favor? Motion carries. My last item is an item actually related to climate change. Councillor Santos, we were in this meeting together, and that is on carbon credits. A lot of people may not realize, but there's a value to the carbon credits we're generating. And we did a motion on this in December, if Council recalls, as part of our ambitious environmental agenda. But what you may not know is that if you don't certify the credit within 6 months of achieving the credit, then you lose it. And so we've actually been generating carbon credits that we've lost. And I know when we heard this, both Councillor Santos and I wanted to pull our hair out because we don't want to. There's a value. There's a monetary value to that. There's companies that, one, we want to hit our targets, but there's also companies that want to purchase those credits. So it's like letting money slip away. So we have a motion. I've got full confidence that our CEO has got this fully under control, and we're going to quantify those carbon credits. But this is a motion that I thought would be appropriate to have in budget, just that we are going to quantify our carbon credits. You hear people say there's no contradiction with wanting to have a clean environment and a good economy because they're interrelated. And just, I would love to see going forward, not this year, but in every other year, as part of the budget, the amount of carbon credits that we've achieved and the monetary value associated with that. I'd love to see a clock on the city website showing, how many carbon credits we've achieved on an ongoing basis. So the motion's on the floor. I believe Councillor Santos, would you like to move this one?
Sure.
Councillor Pellecci.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you to both Mr. Mayor and Councillor Santos for finding this. I guess the next question is, though, how much have we lost? I'd like to know. 259. So if we can't answer that right now, if staff can come back on Thursday, I'll need to know what happened and how much we've lost.
Yeah, and Councillor Plush, I should say, no city in Canada is quantifying. This is so new that it's not like Brampton's made a mistake. We'll be the first to start to quantify.
100%, but then do we go back to say, hey, it wasn't clear enough? Now that we know, did new information come out that kind of, like, how did, you were in a meeting, they let you know this, so how did we then find out? I think a little bit more information. Do we need to go back to our, do we need to go to our federal representatives, say, we missed out on this, and, you're on the tap, and you should go back and pay that money to us.
Yeah. Maybe we can get a bit of disclaimer before Thursday. I think part of this is it's not necessarily a federal system. It's part of the Paris Accord that we signed on to, so it's an international recognition system.
Mm-hmm. But there's private partnerships in there as well, but there's certainly the federal government is signed on to the accord, right?
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Marlon, you want to speak to that?
Through the mayor to Councillor Paleshi, good points made. Unfortunately, we don't have that expertise currently in-house to quantify. Part of the RFP process and a consultant coming on, we will have that answer in terms of what we have, what we could have had, and then once we get that information, we can determine how to use it and move forward.
Councillor Santos.
You, Mr. Chair, I'll just add this is a snooze it or lose it kind of situation. So if the city doesn't take the lead in quantifying our own credits, then others will. And it's first come, first serve. So better that the city does it before any other level of government.
Just trying to mute council. I'll be right back to you.
Okay. We have the motion on the floor. All those in favor? Motion carries. Okay, those are the items that I had. Are there any other motions from councillors? Councillor Vasante.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Kane and I will be bringing a motion on Thursday with respect to audit, but we don't have that today.
Okay. So, Councillor Martini.
Yes. Council budget. On the council budget? What is the increase on our council budget?
Through the chair, Councillor, the current increase is $500,000 overall for members of council as well as mayor, and it's divided in half between the councillors and the mayor.
So what does that equal to councillors?
For each of the councillors, it's an increase of $25,000.
25,000. And wait, the way the increases are going now, we won't have enough money to pay our staff. So I like to add it to increase it to 50,000. Now, I know the mayor's got part of that budget, and I understand he does all the city. But, the 25,000, we're already maxed out now. And every year it's going up, so it has to come to a point where we can't give, because we have to give raises, or we have to go to our staff and say, we have to fire you, or we have to cut it down, because there won't be enough money. So I'd like to ask to bring it to 50,000, not 25,000.
Yeah, and I believe that was the intention I've heard from council. Yeah.
He doesn't answer. Okay.
Okay. A motion moved by Councillor Martini that the council budget.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, I need clarity on this. Is it recommending an additional 25,000 per elected official to the mayor and councilor's budget on top of the current submission? So to make 50.
Increase from 25 to 50.
Members of council,
You can
except
use it-
for the mayor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can use it for whatever you want. If you need it, fine, because at the end of the year, we keep bringing this back. Whatever's left over goes back. We received COVID money, and then we give it back every year, the last 2 years. Our budget, whoever uses it, fine. Usually December it goes back to the city. It's not that it's being used, but we gotta keep it there for some councilors or just in case we need it, it's there. Because at the end it goes back anyway. And the website, it shows out everyone's budget at the end. So increase it from 25 here to 50, and you can use it whatever you want for communications. It's up to them, students, whatever they want to do. That's fine.
It's not 250,000 per member.
No, 50.
It just increased from 25 to 50.
50, yeah. For a total of 250.
So through you, Mr. Chair, this is an increase to the global budget for the members of council for an additional 25,000 per each councillor, which is 10 councillors, for a total budget increase of 250,000. We're just gonna, we have a technical issue with Word at the moment, so we're just waiting for it to reset, and then we'll adjust the motion accordingly.
Councillor Pellecci?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, although I agree with the intent of the motion, we haven't, since we changed from that model to the budget political model, we haven't seen much increase, I don't believe, at all, and yet the population continues to increase. But if you take this as just an example, you have the mayor that has, a certain dollar figure associated with his budget, and justifiably, he covers right across the city. And then you treat all the councillors as if they're the same. And that's what I don't, I think we need to start looking at it differently. I represent, Councillor Brar and myself represent more people than any other councillor ward pairing in the city. As of 2023. Yes, I am. So that being said, if we're going to look at any types of increases, and it's every councillor, I would say, needs that extra support in the communications to our residents, and our area is a little bit different than other areas. If you look at the election that we went through, we were able to raise more money than any other ward pairing, and that's because we have more residents. So I think if we're going to start, and we talk about it at the regional level, where Brampton it's rep by POP, and so I think if going forward, I would like to see the opportunity for ward pairings to have some type of budget allocated to them based on their population.
Councillor Pellecci, one way it can be helpful, but I know it gets...
If it's against what I'm saying, then it's not helpful.
I know sometimes, listen, every member of council around this table is equal.
Yeah.
And there is a way that what you're saying can be reconciled with that. And that is, in the House of Commons, they have a member's budget. And I know that because I spent 3 terms there. There is a geographical and a population supplement. For example, the member for Nunavut has a much larger area to cover, and so there is a formula associated with that. A riding like Brampton that has twice the population that a riding in in PEI, the riding is 30,000. In Brampton, it could be 180, 190, so it could be 8 times the size. They get a population adjustment, and so I'm sure there's some formula where there's an additional allocation based on geography or population, similar to what happens on the federal level. under the context of the quality of all members of council.
Through the chair, Councillor, under the political model, and this is a major distinguish, you can help us with that, Peter, is that we don't, and staff don't propose the increases to your budget. It comes as a request from the members of council and from the mayor to us for that. And if you would like between the members of council and the mayor to decide on a different allocation criteria and so on, that's absolutely up to you. You can decide on that, and then you can channel to us what is the request that you find reasonable to meet the needs of council. And if you like, in the future, we can do that as part of like the formal requests that we receive. We receive it from all the different departments, and for us, financially, council is just another department that we receive the request from.
Yeah, and thank you for that, Nash, and I understand, I understand what you're saying. When we went from this model to the political model, it wasn't council directing what we should be, what our budgets should be associated with. It was based off of what council has used in their budgets in the past, and then whether it was, you know, finance, the clerk's office, because the clerk's office held that budget. Peter, yes or no? Correct me if I'm wrong.
They held the budget for the staff.
Yes.
For the support staff.
Right.
In the past.
But the sports staff, and along came with some of the other items that had come up along the way, and some things that we had done in terms of paper, printing,
Yes.
that kind of, yes.
Those now move to your co-center.
Right. So based off of that, then that was what our budgets should have been. So we took one lump sum as a whole and then divvied it up amongst 10 members of council, 11 including the mayor. But
I believe so, yeah.
so when we're talking about, you know, the region appeal and the city of Brampton, rep by pop, you know, it's going back to what, you know, I was referring to, and I wouldn't, I could say, I wouldn't want to go to finance staff to say, well, I think, you know, this is where Councillor Brar and myself are. We need to get a understanding of how our residents are best served, and the budgets that are allocated to each area councilors. So, but I think what Mayor Brown was referring to is something that, you know, maybe we could look at government relations. Right? Okay, thank you. That's just stuff, nothing to change or anything to do now. I'm just maybe hopefully setting direction for 2024. I don't know.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Councillor Vasante and Frattini, I think there's general consensus now. Well, it's Councillor Vasante.
Thank you, Mayor. And as Councillor Pleshy mentioned, I think that would be a good discussion for our Governance and Operations Committee to see how we might want to move forward on something that's more rep by pop, if you will. Thank you.
Okay.
Peter, it was 250 before, and now became 500,000 for the members of council except for me.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion? Motion carries. I believe we dealt with all the motions.
I sent one in just on what I talked about before on the speed cushion.
Oh, speed cushion motion.
We're getting money for it.
Traffic calming motion on the screen if everyone wants to give it a read through. I'll just note, the camera motion, we're probably going to need to wait till Thursday because we need to get more information. Okay. Okay, Councillor Fortini.
Support the motion. Just to Rob, I think you said we had 600,000 already aside?
Through the chair to Councillor Fortini, there is 800,000 in traffic calming, of which 200,000 originally was put aside for the 40,000 per ward pairings.
Right.
So there's now 600,000. Of that, we could put aside another 200,000, as the other 400 is set up for different calming measures throughout.
So the 600,000, we're asking 2 million, which I'm okay with. So we can move that plus the 400. So really, we only need an additional 1 million, because there is money there.
So through the chair,
Just to clarify,
it would be 1.8, because we have an additional 200,000.
I thought you said last week, there was 600,000 and something else which we could use for speed bumps.
So through the chair, for traffic calming, we have 800,000.
Right.
200,000 has been set aside for 40,000 per ward pairing, and some of that's
Oh, we
been
haven't
spent.
used ours, yeah. Okay.
We have an additional 600,000, but 400 of that is earmarked for different traffic calming measures. We could put another 200,000
What do you
from,
mean? Different traffic measures,
so signage,
Sign.
road painting, those types of things that come through. So we do have an additional 200,000 from the 800,000 for a total of 400,000 from 2022 that is available.
To help clarify, so we don't, everyone supports additional traffic calming, that we all hear about this. I think Councillor Keenan can simplify the intention here. Since he was named, I'm going to recognize Councillor Keenan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just to be clear, there is 800 that's in there, or is there 600 in there? 800, right?
Through the chair, there's 800.
Okay, so there's 800 for traffic calming measures. My proposal is to add 1.2 million strictly for speed cushions. So if the motion's not reading that way, that's how I would like it to read. If you're capable of giving us another 2, then great, then it'll be 1.4 million. We need as much as we can get. I would ask for 10 million if I could, but we're never gonna get anywhere in time if we don't move on it. So the intent of this is to have the additional 1.2 million into that reserve to make it 2 million, to be strictly for speed humps, whatever they were, cushions, humps, whatever we call them. So is that how everyone's reading this?
Absolutely. So through you, Mr. Chair, my advice would be that the first operative paragraph says that the budget, it should be capital budget allocated to the installation of speed cushions be increased by $1.2 million for a total capital budget of $2 million.
Okay. Councillor Pleshy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I have a motion with respect to transit.
Okay, let's deal with Councillor Keenan's motion first. Councillor Santos.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, just for further clarification, so $800,000 that's currently in the 2023 budget is for traffic calming. It includes speed humps and other measures, correct?
So
Yes.
through the chair, we should put, yes, traffic calming measures, which includes speed
Right.
humps. Yes.
So the 1.2 million is to try to top up and focus on a specific traffic calming measure, which is increasing speed humps throughout the entire city. And so then the total budget for traffic calming program would end up being 2 million total, with 1.2 at the very least, plus some that's already there, dedicated to speed humps. So ultimately, the budget for speed humps will be 1.2 million plus change, which was already allocated in 800, correct?
Correct.
Okay, just wanted to make that clear, just for everyone to know. Clear as mud or clear as water? Okay, thank you.
Councillor Fortini, you'd like to speak to this item again? Okay. All those in favor of Councillor Keenan's motion on traffic calming? Motion carries. Councillor Paleshi, you want to go back on the board?
Somebody took me off, Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I was talking to Councillor Tour, who unfortunately couldn't be here today, but you know, we heard from that delegation down in Churchville last week, and a couple other residents that have reached out to us to talk about the buses that and the 33 million, to see how we can, you know, try and get away from purchasing the diesel buses, moving to more of the hybrid buses that are, what I'm being told, somewhat easily to be able to convert to fully electric when the time comes. But so that being said, I do have a motion that Councillor Tour was going to move, but I'm happy to, since he's not online. And it just with respect to, we've had a discussion with Alex, and just with respect to how we get our heads around that and what kind of changes we can make and when we can make them. I think it's good for transit to be able to bring back kind of that opportunity for us to look at, you know, in particular the growth of not only transit, but the you know, the ridership and having those buses. I think is it 18? How long is it for us to convert one of the bus, or the lifespan of the bus, Alex?
Through the chair, the lifespan of our buses that we have today are 18 years. We do a midlife refurbishment at 10 years. And again, as mentioned earlier, our whole program for the implementation of electrification will include the review of the federal carbon credits, et cetera, that was mentioned earlier.
So I think it's the 33 million on the 38 replacement buses. You know, we really want to try and get around how we can change and some of that. And I know there's issues out there in the private to deliver on those types of buses. I guess, you know, every municipality is trying to do the same thing, but so that's the motion.
Can you scroll down to the bottom?
No.
Perfect. Yeah, I was just a note, Councillor Pelletier, we just got an email today from the David Suzuki Foundation on this, so I'm glad you put this forward. Malkeet just wrote us about not purchasing these, you know, just expediting the purchase of electrified buses and not purchasing traditional buses. So this is whatever way we can expedite that infrastructure.
And I think staff's been very clear, and they're doing everything they can to expedite that. But the last thing is we don't want to be left out with no buses, right? So if it comes down to an either or, unfortunately, we have to go with the or. And I think you know, having staff come back with some of that information, I think, is beneficial to us on a go forward. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we have the motion. Councilor Fortini had put his name up for the previous item. Are you still?
No, it's
okay, Councilor Fortini.
Yeah, I just want to ask, we have those park enhancement. What was the increase that we got? Was it increased?
Councilor Fortini, this is on the transit motion.
No, I'm fine with this.
Okay.
I thought you
All
always.
those in favor of Councilor Pelletier's transit motion? Motion carries.
Okay. On the park enhancement, how much was it increased? It was increased?
Through the,
Sorry.
through the mayor, there's 1 million per ward that's outlined in the budget.
Oh, still the same.
Still the same.
Still the same. Good. Thank you.
Okay. Do you want to? Someone want to answer Councilor Fortini's? Okay. 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 So that. Okay.
When we do those park enhancements, are we allowed to use that money for these catwalks? Some of them, you can't even get by. They couldn't even clean the snow. They were doing it by hand, or city workers yesterday morning. Or we're not allowed to?
Through the mayor to Councilor Fordini, maybe I'll ask.
And I know when I've
Finance.
asked many times, when we do these roads and it comes and we have these catwalks, we're already there with the bobcats, equipment, machines. And I know we did a couple. They might as well do that in U2 at the same time. They're right there. Because some of them are really, really bad shape. You know, yesterday the guy couldn't clean it with a snowblower because, you know, it was like this. So I just wondering.
So, sorry. Yeah, go ahead, no, sorry.
Yeah, through the chair, Councilor Fortini, as you know, we have really brought in opinion to be able to expand the things that we can spend park and lieu money on the different enhancements to the park. We'll have to go back and confirm if catwalks are part of those enhancements. It's just a legal opinion on that, whether the DCs allow us to use that or not. And we can come back to you on that.
Because most of those catwalks, some of them are going from the road to the park. So maybe we can combine them together. Okay.
Okay, thank you. I think we covered all the motions, so, our next procedurally.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to members of committee, if there are no other motions, then my advice would be that we should go through the totality of the motions, starting from the start of the meeting on February 27th, to ratify all of those as the Budget Committee's recommendations to Council on March 9th. I don't know if Finance has any comments, or they want to provide any advice on the motions, or?
Peter, through the chair, after we vote on all of them, next week, when we bring everything, we'll bring a full list of all the motions and their impact on the budget, and show a full reconciliation of where we started, where we ended, and what were the motions in between.
Councillor Singh?
So if we vote on them now, on Thursday, will we be able to amend anything? Yeah, okay, just making sure.
Completely.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll ask the clerk to explain so all members can hear.
So through you, Mr. Chair, so these are recommendations from the Budget Committee, and they go to Council, and members are free to move amendments. Council at a special meeting can vote motions down, can add new motions. It's completely amendable and up for consideration by Council on the 9th.
So to members of the committee, understanding that we have still the final meeting to be held on Thursday, there is flexibility there in bringing new motions and in making amendments to the motions that we considered today. That would mean that at this point, we could, at committee's discretion, call for a recess and Mr. Clerk?
So through you, Mr. Chair, there's been no motions moved to adopt the operating department budgets. That still has to be considered. Is it the will of committee to move those forward without recommendation? Because there's no motions to adopt the departmental budgets.
So there seems to be a desire among members that we would move and approve those motions on Thursday.
If that's the will of committee.
Very good. So we will do all the work on Thursday evening at the special council meeting. Motions have been tabled and there may be no new motions coming. Are we all agreed?
So through you, Mr. Chair, for clarity, the only motions that are going to be presented from this committee to council are those that were voted on then. There are a number of motions that were moved to approve departmental budgets, that were intended to be moved that have not been moved. So departmental budgets will not be presented to council. Those will have to then be moved on Thursday night. Is that the intent?
So we would ask staff to bring forward those motions for special council so that they can be considered and approved.
So, yes, unless through the clerk there is any procedural item that.
So through you, Mr. Chair, normal practice, past practice of Budget Committee has to provide to council for its special meeting a full complement of motions and recommendations, which include approval of the respective departmental budgets with any amendments. So at this point, committee, like as example on the screen, the transit budget has not been moved. So is the intent that that will just stay in abeyance until Thursday night, or is the intent for committee to make that positive recommendation today?
In hearing members here, it seems that there is a desire to move and approve those motions today. Mr. Clerk? Councillor Singh, back to you. You still have the floor.
No, I was seeking clarification, which I just
Very good.
got.
Next, I have Councillor Fortini on the board.
Yeah, and I agree with what Pierre. Just wanted to ask, Peter, we could amend anything. I know like Councillor Keenan put the money, for those speed bumps. But if we're looking at savings, can we amend, like, I remember that house we were saying we're gonna tear it down for the catwalk, and we were gonna sell it, recuperate. Can we use money like that to bring it back into the speed bumps or so, in my ward? I think.
Through the,
because we're not tearing that down. That's the home that we bought for the catwalk 7 and 8, and I think there's enough room for a catwalk there. Why tear the home down when we could probably recuperate $1 million out of that?
Yeah, through the chair. Yes, you're right. We had a meeting with all the area councillors and the vice chair and chair of Public Works Committee earlier in February. And the option presented was accepted by other members that we will not be decommissioning the house and demolishing the house. So we had the money for the house if you want to use it.
Yeah, okay. You know which one, Mr. Vice Chair, you know which one I'm talking about. So that could be transferred over if we need it, because we recuperate?
so through the chair, Councilor Fortini, the management team will be meeting after council in order to look at all these opportunities.
Okay.
And bring the savings into the next meeting.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fortini. And before I go to Councillor Santos, there's also a request from members for us to break if we do consider to go through the motions today. Councillor Santos.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I was just going to say that because we've asked staff to come back with potential savings, even if we were to pass those, the budgets department by department now, we could still reopen at council anyway on Thursday.
correct.
So we don't have to go through the entire discussion. We can just talk about those potential savings that we find.
Thank you very much, Councillor Santos, and everyone is in agreement. So we will ask for a 15-minute break before we resume to consider the motions and approve them. Thank you very much.
Resumed. If any member wants to move a particular section, let me know. We had the vote first section on transit.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, if Budget Committee wishes, we can take these for the most part as a package. So
Okay.
we can take the transit budget, we can take the fire and emergency services budget, just will require one mover for all of these, and if,
Sure, moved by Deputy Mayor Singh.
okay, just bear with us a moment, we're. So we have the transit budget, it'll be moved by Deputy Mayor Singh, as well as the fire and emergency services budget. And when I reference budgets, I'm referring to the operating and capital budgets of those departments. So same thing for Deputy Mayor Singh, we can scroll down. And for the public works and engineering budget, operating and capital. For the community services budget, operating and capital. And for the corporate services budget, operating and capital. For the planning, building, and growth management department, the development department, capital and operating. And then for the legislative services budget, it is, with the exception of the compensation portion of the enforcement and bylaw services division, as Councillor Fortini had declared a conflict. So this one will enable Councillor Fortini to vote on this package of motions, and then we'll take a separate vote just on the compensation portion. So we'll skip over that next motion. And the Office of the Chief Administrative Officer, the capital and operating, and then the general government budget. So we'll take those all as a package.
moved by Deputy Mayor Singh. All those in favor? Motion. Record a vote. No, it's already done. He's separating. We're voting your part next.
Recorded vote's been requested on the departmental budgets. All in favor, please stand to be counted. Showing in favor is Councillor Santos, Councillor Vicente, Councillor Brar, Councillor Pelletier, Councillor Keenan, Mayor Brown, Councillor Power, Councillor Fortini, Deputy Mayor Singh. Councillor Medeiros, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you. And Councillor Tour is not present. So that motion carries 10-0 with one absence. The next vote would be, if Councillor Fortini can leave the chambers for a moment, would be on the compensation portion of the Legislative Services Department budget as it specifically pertains to the Enforcement and Bylaw Services Division. We do need a mover for this motion.
Moved by Councillor Pelletier. All those in favor? Motion carries.
Thank you, and Councillor Fortini can return. The next budget is the Downtown Brampton VIA budget. We've done all the delegations. There we go. We did receive the presentation. The next one is the 2023 operating budget.
Okay, moved by Councillor Keenan. All those in favor? Motion carries.
Thank you. The next budget is the Brampton Public Library Board budget. The presentation was received, but the operating and capital budget needs to be moved.
Okay, moved by Councillor Santos. All those in favor? Motion carries. Councillor Vicente.
Councillor Brar.
Councillor Burr. We have Councillor.
Both.
On the board to speak. Okay.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the next 10.3 was just information that was received, and then there was the motion moved by Councillor Santos about staff bringing back some additional information to the special meeting on March 9th. So that information coming from finance will include offsets and appropriate savings for the capital and operating budget, such that the requested budget increase as presented at the outset of this meeting is to be maintained. That's the intent of staff. And then the final one is just to receive the responses to questions raised at the budget committee. So just for 10.4, it just requires a mover.
Okay, moved by Councillor Vicente. All those in favor? Motion carries.
And that concludes all the motions. There is a public question period. We did check the clerk's inbox. There was no questions that came in. I don't know if there is anybody here who wishes to come forward for question period. Seeing none, there traditionally is a councillor question period, but I believe most of those questions have been asked during deliberations today. So through you, and there is no closed session, so through you, Mr. Chair, the last motion would be adjournment. And then all these recommendations will be presented to the special meeting of council on Thursday evening.
And just note that would mean there'd be no budget deliberations required tomorrow.
That's correct.
It would be just Thursday for everyone's calendars.
Yep.
All those in favor, moved by Councillor Brar. Motion carries. We're adjourned. We will finish budget on Thursday night.